This week I learned, sometimes a challenging book is the best kind of reward. Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike back with another weekly update, and a happy Easter to all who celebrate, as that is the thing that is going on today. In fact, I'm probably out with my kids right now trying to hunt down some Easter eggs or, look for candy is more likely what they're doing at this age. But hey, it is a fun time here in the States, and I appreciate those who are celebrating with their family and loved ones. But in case you're kind of sitting at home after your Easter egg hunt, after your nice Easter dinner, and you're sitting there with a full tummy and you want something to watch, hopefully this can fit the bill. Very fun week on the channel. We're going to talk about that, beginning, like always, by talking about what am I reading. Guys, I did finish ℙ𝕦𝕣𝕔𝕙𝕒𝕤, but I talked about it last week. Thing is like I'm not going to repeat everything I said. I was so close to the end last week that I feel like I don't need to talk about it again because I'll save those things for when I go more into depth when I do Into the Multiverse. So if you want to know what I thought about ℙ𝕦𝕤𝕤𝕤, check out last week's weekly update. So let's just dig into what I really got into this week, guys, and that is The Failures by Benjamin Lyer. And oh man, this is I really don't know how to talk about this book because this is something else. This is something definitely unique. A little, gosh, I guess I'm about the 3/4 mark almost at this point. It's one of those where you start the book and you have no idea what's going on. Now, like, I have no problems with ℓ𝕦𝕤𝕤𝕤, but like, seriously, guys, the first 100, 150 pages book are like, seriously, what the fuck am I reading? It really will test your patience, I think. But I think when I went into this, Brent, one of my patrons that read it, obviously Patrick, that was really high on it, said really all they can preach about this book is patience at the beginning. Payoff will be worth it, but it really, really will try your patience to get there. And I'm going to say, look, it starts in media res, but not really, because it's not like you're like in the middle of a battle or something. You got to figure, okay, well, why are these people fighting? Anything like that. It's just you have these 4 different groups of characters, and you don't really understand what they all have to do with each other. It almost seems like, are these 4 different books? What's going on here? It's really hard to understand what's happening. This world is so unique, but it's got it like an omniscient narrator, which is obviously a different kind of, for some book like this, it seems like you're going to be using POV characters. You're just going to have your 4 different POVs, right? But this uses an omniscient narrator that kind of flows into the POVs, and it's a very unique take. But the thing is, like, I don't even know if these 4 POVs are, it's not really a POV character, it's like a POV group. There's 4 different groups, and it can kind of fly between those characters when you go through those. But I'm not even sure they're on the same timeline. Like, these things could be happening at different times, and you get to a point where you're getting convergence. You realize, oh, this story was taking place, 100 years ago. This one was 20 years in the future. This one's present day. You don't know. At least I don't yet. And I feel like it's going to do something like that. It's going to play with that a little bit because we are now finally getting to the point you're starting to hear about some of those other characters in the other POVs. And the thing that's really crazy about this is once you finally get to a point where you feel like, okay, I think I've got these groups down. Still, everything's not clear, but I'm following the story pretty well. He drops a 5th POV group, and it's it's the most confusing one yet, where it literally is like, is this from the same book? Did I get like a defective copy? Did they put something in here that wasn't supposed to be? This feels like another book. It really will test your how much you've got. It really will, to see if you can keep going with this. But look, I won't call it overly dense or anything like that, because it's not. It's not difficult to read. It's just one of those that you've got to just trust the process. It's definitely a trust the process book, and just trust that he's going to get you there. And I think Lyer does get you there. That can still flip on a coin, obviously, is, like I said, about 70% through here. But it's one of those where, yeah, trust what's happening and trust that he's going to get there. Trust that it'll make sense, because I'm still at the point where I'm like, I still don't understand the 5th POV group, but I'm ready to call this book incredible, guys. This is really, really an ambitious book. You remember a couple weeks ago where I was talking about all modern fantasy was really starting to disillusion me because everything felt formulaic, felt like it was using an AI to write the 3-act structure. That's not a problem with this. This is one of the most unique books I feel like I've read in a long time, and I think it's the first time since Dark Tower that I can feel like there is a successful mashing of several different genres, because you've got coming of age here, you got science fiction, you got dystopian, you got portal fantasy, you've even got some steampunk, I think you would say, and of course just adult fantasy. It's got a little bit of everything, but it's making all those things work really, really well. And I like how the world kind of I can see why Dark Tower fans recommend this to me, because it does have that world that kind of feels like it's moved on, maybe a little bit dystopian, but it's also got a lot of those futuristic elements like super weapons and automata and things like that, just like machinery, industrial age that you shouldn't have in kind of this setting. So again, it's mashing up so many things. But yeah, this is really one of those books where it's like, I don't know what's going on, but I want to keep reading to find out kind of way. And that's really, really good. And I'm really, really impressed with this being a debut author, what he's able to do here. Now, obviously, it's going to depend on how he sticks the landing. I'm not even sure we'll get that in this book since it's book one of a planned trilogy, but I'm just saying this is definitely not the cookie cutter fantasy that I've very much grown tired of. It's really unique. And I said it does remind me of several things from like a Dark Tower or something like that, but never once am I like, oh, this is just ripping off Dark Tower. I mean, you have like doorways to other worlds and things like that, but I still don't know exactly what's going on there. So that would be the closest thing I could say. Yeah, that feels like it was a direct inspiration from Stephen King, which he does list The Dark Tower as one of his main inspirations. So, okay, cool. But guys, there's no way you're going to read this and think, oh, this is just like Dark Tower. No, this definitely feels like its own thing. But like The Dark Tower, it has all these different genres mashed into it where you're going to be like, I can't believe he's making this work, but he is making it work. And I'm very excited about where it is heading. But yeah, it's again, a book I think you're not going to really fly through just because there's so much things going on in it. But damn, it's just stick with those first 100, 150 pages and know that it's going to get its hooks in you. You're going to be really, really curious about what's going on. At least that's where I stand about the 3/4 mark right now. And I'm excited to finish. So what am I going to read? Obviously, I will finish The Failures sometime this week. And then, guys, that will be all that I have for the month of April. So I'll be starting my May reads early, possibly. The thing is like I don't have those planned out yet. So I was like, do I start my May reads or do I try to fit in like a Drizzt book or something like that? What do? I don't know. We'll see as it comes along. The only book I have in stone, I have decided I'm going to do in May, is going to be Small Town Horror by ℚ𝕦𝕤𝕤𝕤. So maybe I'll do that one. I don't know. I'd rather not read all of one of my May books in April. That might mess things up, but it's been a really good reading month. I did have a lot of shorter books at the beginning of the month because I thought this was going to take me at least 2 weeks to read, and it just kept me up at night thinking about it to where I just been like, let me just pick it up and read one more chapter. That's the kind of book that it is. But I guess if I start anything early, it would be Small Town Horror, or like I said, I'll go back to Legacy of the Drow and maybe read one of those. How about this week on the channel, guys? Did do some fun things. I did a standard book review. I know those were kind of like a unicorn on BookTube these days, but I did one for Dungeon Crawler Carl because I felt like there was a lot to talk about. And I talked about why, as someone who maybe was being a little bit of a fancy snob, gave the book a try and actually really enjoyed it, and why you might as well. That's really one where people were like, look, if you like it, I'll give it a try. If you don't like it, yeah, I probably realize it isn't for me. But I still have a lot of people like, it just didn't click for me. And it's not going to be a book that clicks for everyone. But I talk about in there, if these are the kind of things that you're looking for, you'll probably get them. For me, it was one that was like, what I said is it is not the book I expected, and that's a good thing. In the end, guys, I just had a lot of fun with it, and that was enough. It was enough, and the thing was, like I said, I came for the laughs, but I stayed for the character work. This character work is really, really good, and shockingly, in one book about a guy and his talking cat going through an underground video game labyrinth, believe it or not, has really, really good character work. So I'm anxious to continue with the series. Probably will be doing book 2 next month because a wonderful viewer, Stephen, did actually send me book number 2. And I appreciate that, Stephen. Thank you so much. And I might probably go ahead and continue it in May. Like I said, I just haven't nailed those down. But most likely, ℚ𝕦𝕤𝕤𝕤 and book 2, it's Carl's Doomsday Scenario will be happening in May. And I did a video, it's just fantasy series I think deserve more love. It's one of those where I'm like, look, I know you've heard of these series. I just feel like they are either series that are starting to get forgotten with time. People just don't talk about them very much, or BookTube just doesn't show them enough love. You know, they're successful, but not enough people talk about them. So some series you're gonna be like, yeah, that's one maybe I've heard of. I just never really thought it was gonna be for me. So it's where I make some recommendations for things like that. But towards the end, a lot of them are series you've heard of, and you've probably even seen on BookTube. I don't feel like people talk about them enough. You know, I feel like complaint I got when I was on Undertower's podcast, which I'll talk about here in a minute, is they were saying it feels like that booktubers are all talking about the same 10 to 15 series. And that's why I say I want to branch out sometimes. I mean, I want to give people what they want. Like everybody wanted me to talk about Dungeon Crawler Carl, and everybody's talking about Dungeon Crawler Carl right now. But I went ahead and did that just because the audience was asking for it. So that's why I went ahead and did it. But videos like this I make because there are still so many good series out there. I feel like yeah, they've got like a little bit of a cult following, but they deserve to be like a mainstay in the fantasy community. And that's why I'm going to kind of talk about there. And obviously, in the end, I think you should read more Ray Bradbury because it will make your life that much better. It will enrich your vocabulary. It will enrich your life. So hopefully, you guys will pick up some of those. I was a guest over on the Undertowers podcast. I want to thank those gentlemen for having me on a fun discussion. They posted the rapid fire questions there. They posted it on Instagram and I shared it. It was a lot of fun, that discussion. We had lots of laughs in there. But they really asked me to come on after they did see that disillusionment, book disillusionment with a modern fantasy video, and kind of wanted to talk about that. Make some recommendations to me. They make some recommendations of books I hadn't heard of before. And that's a list that's ever growing. But I want to thank them. They're awesome gentlemen, and I hope you guys will check them out. And I'll link that video here in the whatever, the little bubble that pops up and tells you to click here. That's where you guys can find that discussion. I want to thank them again for asking me to be on. I love being a guest on other people's channels because I don't have to edit. How about some next week plans, guys? Got some good plans, I think, here. I want to do something about horror because I've been reading a lot more horror lately. Obviously, I've really gotten into like Ronald Malfi. So something I wanted to kind of do more on the channel this year was read more horror, not just in the month of October. I love the genre. I feel like we all need a break from long series, long books, 800-900 page epic fantasy books, book 1 of 8 or 9, it gets exhausting. So I think a good way to do that, to combat that, since there isn't a lot of standalones in fantasy, is pick up another genre. For me, that's been horror, where I've been picking up a book or 2 per month of some horror stories and really enjoying it. So I want to do some kind of video, not necessarily a, horror for non-horror fans, but, horror books I think that are just good stories. You don't necessarily have to be pro or anti-horror to like them. I think it's just one of those things like, look, these are just really good stories that might have a monster in it or might have something horrific in it. I don't know. So maybe I just kind of haven't really nailed down exactly what it's going to be, but that's something I kind of want to put a focus on because I do want to do more horror content on the channel. It's one of those things where I'm trying to ease into that because I know a lot of you guys are not really crazy about horror, but it's something that I love, and I think you'll find it quite refreshing if you find the right author. And it's been a long task for me finding the right author. And there's some of those, there'll be some classics, there's going to be some rather new stuff on there that I think I would love to talk about. And then, of course, guys, we'll be nailing down those reading plans for the month of May. And it's going to be interesting. We got the ℚ𝕦𝕣𝕠𝕜𝕤 book, which you guys already know about, that Stress of Her Regard by Tim Powers. That's going to be for June, I think the second or third week of June, because I'll be on vacation at the beginning of June. We're going to talk about that together, but I'll probably read it at the end of May. And I've already told you about Small Town Horror and maybe Dungeon Crawler Carl, but there'll be a few other surprises on there if you want to know what I'll be reading in May and if you'd like to join me for any of them. That's really the whole point of a TBR video, is so you guys will know what I'm going to be reading, what I'm going to be talking about, and hopefully you guys will join me for some of them. That's about all I got for the books for today, guys. Got a couple of TV and movie talk things, and this one's going to be kind of interesting. Is I know that a lot of people think it's silly that me and my oldest son were going through all of the Chucky movies. The thing is growing up, Chucky was an icon. He's a horror icon. I loved his movies. I watched the first 3, and then when Bride of Chucky came out, and it was hilarious. They turned it into a horror comedy, and it was really a change of direction for the franchise. I enjoyed it, but I never watched another one. When they went to direct-to-video, I stopped watching. I was like, it's probably past its time, So I never really watched them. But this time I said I was going to do it. And here's the deal is, Part 5 was called Seed of Chucky, and we were like, it just kind of continued to Bride of Chucky, where it was just being absurd, being ridiculous. In the end, guys, look, I like all of them. I think Brad Dourif is a legend, not just Wormtongue, but he's also the voice of Chucky, and I think Brad Dourif can do no wrong. I think he's amazing. I'm just there to see Chucky do some really awesome kills and do some Freddy Krueger kind of one-liner. He's really good at that, and to hear the Brad Dourif laugh. I mean, the Chucky laugh is iconic, I think. But with this, what really shocked me is we watched Part 6, which is The Curse of Chucky. And oh my God, guys, this was actually really damn good. If you're one of those that wanted them to kind of go away from the horror comedy and go back to its horror roots, you'll get it, because this is maybe the scariest movie in the franchise. It's right there with Part 1, and that this is actually something really, really terrifying. And I didn't think at this point that you could make Chucky scary again. Me, my kid, and my wife were all kind of like, holding our breath a few times. Like, my wife was just kind of, casually watching. She's just kind of playing on her iPad. And then she puts it down. She gets her covers and goes like this, like she does when she's really wrapped up in a story. And we, all 3 of us, were like, that is so much better writing than a 6th movie in a horror franchise needs to be. Really damn good. And it really tied up back to Part 1 really well. All the Charles Lee Ray stuff really gets tied up in that movie. it was really impressive. It really, really was. I could not believe how good. It's like, that should have went to cinemas. That was so good. That didn't feel like it. Did Curse of Chucky? Or Seed of Chucky felt like, yeah, that probably should have been direct to video. Curse of Chucky? That should have been in the big screen. That was a damn good movie. So I was really impressed. And we're excited to do the final one, which is Cult of Chucky, for the Chucky television show. So it was so good, we're like actually theorizing about what's going to happen in Cult of Chucky. That's how good Curse of Chucky was. So are these names confusing for you? Anyway, look, in the end, I know that nobody's probably watching those that watch this, but we've had a great time with it. And yeah, for me, Chucky's in the discussion for the horror icon Mount Rushmore. He's really iconic for me. And like, you go into any kind of like pop culture store, like a Spencer's Gifts or Hot Topics, stuff like that, you'll still see Chucky stuff everywhere. He's really, really just a brand at this point. And the fact that they're still making Chucky content 30-something years later is actually really, really impressive. And they're on the same continuity. We disregard that remake that happened a few years ago. But just like the regular Chucky storyline, it's still the same continuity, same creators. Don Mancini's still doing it. Brad Dourif is retired, but he's still doing the Chucky voice. That's amazing. That's dedication right there. So having a good time with it. And the only other thing I did this weekend, guys, is I got into some gaming. So gaming talk here. I want to talk about the Resident Evil series. And I know this is something that's dear and near to a lot of people. Look, I played the original Resident Evil when it was brand new. Like when I first got a PlayStation 1, I was like, I want to get some other games along with Final Fantasy 7. Resident Evil was one that I picked up. And I was like, holy shit, I didn't know that there was like horror video games. This is crazy. So I really got into that series. Resident Evil 2 was like a watershed moment in my gaming life. I love that game so much. I love how you can start as Claire and then play as Leon, or start as Leon, then play as Claire. So you basically have 4 games in one. So when they started doing these Resident Evil remakes, I was like, that's cool. I think it's a neat idea. That's one of my favorite games ever. I want to play it, but I was like, I'm not paying AAA prices for a remake. I don't care how cool it is. I'm not paying $70 for a game I've already played. That's Nintendo stuff. That's Disney stuff. I'm not doing that again. Well, they all marked them all down to like $20 here for the weekend. So I went ahead and picked up 2, 3, and 4, the remakes. The thing is with the Resident Evil franchises, I was a big fan of for a long time. 2 was amazing. 3, it was short, but I still liked it. I thought that, God, what was his name? Nemesis stalking you was actually really cool. It was a really short game. And then the thing was, I played Code Veronica and liked it a lot. 4, and this is what's going to amaze some people, because I know a lot of people consider Resident Evil 4 like one of the best games ever. I didn't play it that much. When it came out, I was upset that they kind of started to go away from the survival horror and they leaned into action. And I was like, that's not what I want. And I realized, looking back on it now, I was like, okay, Silent Hill came along, stole their formula, and basically stole their lunch money. They basically became like the horror franchise, where Resident Evil was like, oh yeah, Resident Evil used to be good, but now Silent Hill is really where I'm at with my horror. And it was like, okay, they just couldn't replicate that, so they said, well, let's adapt. And they made somewhat of an action game with Resident Evil 4. So for me, guys, this will be like a brand new game for me. I've never really played it very much. I played like the first couple of hours of it and realized, okay, well, this is just turned into an Arnold 80s action flick. I don't know if that's what I want in my Resident Evil game. But it was like over the last decade plus where everybody's just talking about how amazing that game is. I was like, well, maybe I'll check out this remake if they get there. Well, they did get there. And like I said, they marked them all down, all 3 of them down to $20 on Amazon. So I went ahead and got them. Playing through Resident Evil 2 right now. It's amazing, guys. It's incredible what they've done with this. They kind of switched the crazy camera angles that Resident Evil did. They took those away, which I know a lot of people be like, oh, why would you do that? It's iconic. They did like the over-the-shoulder kind of thing, like they do like Gears of War kind of look, and it works really, really well. And dude, it is freaky. Playing this late at night, and it is freaking scary. So, yeah, really, really incredible job. I know a lot of people didn't like the Resident Evil 3 remake as much, but apparently 2 and 4 are really, really good. But yeah, so far I can say Resident Evil 2 remake, awesome. It's an awesome experience. I'm already probably about a good 6 to 8 hours into it, just exploring every nook and cranny. The thing is, like the things that enter my memory, because I played Resident Evil 2 on the PS1 like a dozen times. So I thought, oh, I'll still remember everything. And I'm like, it's almost like a brand new game. It's like those things that you love are still there, but they've added so much and they've kind of moved some things around. And it's some things I'm like, was that in the original game or not? I don't think so. They just moved some locations around and stuff. It's really cool. I started as Claire, and I'll play Leon second. So I used to always play as Leon first and then Claire second. But I think the actual canon was actually Claire first and Leon second. But I don't know, because I've heard them say that the remakes aren't exactly canon. They're kind of like a reimagining. But I'm like, whatever. It's fine by me. But it's really good. Really good. So again, with when it comes to gaming, a lot of these things, I'm always late to the party. Because, yeah, it's so hard for me to find time. I've got 4 gamers in this house. It's hard to find gaming time, So I'm fighting my kid right now. He's playing Elden Ring DLC, the Erd Tree series. And he just wants endless time on the TV, and it's just like, bro, other people want to play games. My wife's playing South of Midnight right now, so it's like, it's hard for me to find time. So I've been staying up really late when it's really scary time to play a game like Resident Evil, and it has been a blast. So guys, that was my week. I hope you're having an awesome, awesome Easter weekend. Recharging the batteries a little bit before we get into summertime here in the States, and kids are going to be out of school, and that's always a time where everyone, especially if you're married to an educator like me, where it seems like everyone in the house is counting down the days until then. But I'd love to know what you're watching, what you're reading, what you listen to, what you are playing. Why don't you go ahead and drop in the comments and let me know, and I will talk to you there.